Lights, camera, action. This is Mr. Cage, and this is today's thought of the day for January 24th, 2022. Now, this is going to be not a traditional thought of the day. It's going to be more so in a lesson. I'm going to connect my story with this principle to help us get free and liberated from the invisible prison of psychology. We find ourselves in a psychological prison, and some of us aren't aware that we're in prison. Before a person even transitions into a physical jail or prison, that individual is already imprisoned in the mind. You also don't have to go to a literal or physical prison to be in prison. You can be imprisoned by self, SELF, imposed limitations. Let's get ready. This is what I would say to people watching this. If you want a video, a one-hitter quitter, something fast, this video may not be for you at this time, but it may be for you at another time. For the people that's willing to sacrifice 7 to 10 minutes of their time, as I was getting ready to record this video, I've jotted this down, that 5 minutes of your time can change 20 years of your life. The 5 to 7 to 10 minutes it's going to take for us to deliberate about this topic called becoming a wall can change 20 years of your life in the future, but it first takes a willing mind, willing and ready. This conversation is going to be so in-depth. I would normally, when I'm doing thoughts of the day, I would just roll it from my heart and what I know and my knowledge base and from experience, but I have to stay true to these specific notes for comprehension purposes and just to stay very synergistic and structured when I'm delivering this message to you. I'm speaking from knowledge and experience-based dimension, not just knowledge. So I'm not going to give you theory, psychological terms only. This, I've experienced this, and I'm living out from a place of freedom because of it's my experience and a whole assortment of other events and people that have been placed in my life to help me realize my full potential. Real eyes realize full potential. Real eyes, REAL, realize full potential. Realization can be associated with revelation, meaning that once I was blind and deaf, and in one aspect of life, I'm no longer blind and deaf. I can see, I can hear based on who I really am. Becoming one with the wall. There was a Facebook Live that I did last week centered around this topic. The conversation just came normally, organically in a session. It hit me. I jotted it down. Then I elaborated my heart from it. But now it's more compact. It's not just like all over the place. Now it's more structured. Becoming one with the wall. I'm going to explain to you what the wall is. But becoming one with the wall occurs when we internalize feelings and emotions associated with a traumatic experience on a psychological level or in accordance with the 5 senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. When we become one with the wall is defense mechanisms. When we become one with defense mechanisms, It's connected to our internalizing, I-N. We have a traumatic experience. We feel the impact of the feelings and emotions on a psychological level and associate with our five senses. So let's put some flesh on these series of thoughts. One of my first traumatic experiences with a female was when my girlfriend cheated on me with my best friend that I considered as a brother in high school. I was a junior in high school at that time. In addition, I suffered from abandonment because my mom had a tremendous loss of her father, and she didn't know how to cope with that loss in a healthy way. It led her to cope with the loss in an unhealthy way, which equated to abandonment for me. She left for various amounts of times. When I'm not doing is throwing her under the bus, I'm giving you a specific detailed timeline in association with this topic, because our parents only know what they know. They may know in knowledge what to do, but one of the highest level of knowings is when you live and model what you know experientially. Had two traumatic experiences in association with women. These women, of course, I trusted. Of course, in an ideal situation, a child's going to trust his or her parent. When you young and adolescent in terms of high school, that trust for my experience as a male was more so because I was externally attracted to the individual, and it was more of a selfish motive of me getting what I want to get, which in that aspect was sexual favors. But nonetheless, I still had a trust. And I've always in my life been a committed person to people, places, projects, whatever. I never saw myself as a person that was real promiscuous in any regard. So connecting that to becoming one with the wall or the defense mechanisms, when I found myself in relationships with females that I could not control, was outside of my element of control, my defense mechanism manifested. Whether it was me looking at a mole on someone's face and I felt like it was too big, or their behaviors and actions not lining up with my experience or my lifestyle, AKA control. Control in any form or facet can be associated with a person being hurt and lack of trust. So if I'm trying to control something, that lets me know that I've become the man in charge. And it's more so out of safety for myself, not out of concern for that person. Let's transition. So I'm giving you becoming one with the wall. We become one with the defense mechanism. The defense mechanism becomes a part, and sometimes it becomes who we are based on the internalization of feelings and emotions associated with a traumatic experience on a psychological level in accordance with the five senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Now, once we experience trauma in the natural realm, in terms of our psyche, a hurt or wound will ensue. Then a scab, a defense mechanism, will form. So once we experience the trauma on a natural psychological level with our five senses, a hurt or wound ensues, occurs. In our natural bodies, when we get hurt, we've all fell off that bike when we was little. We scraped up our knee. Parent mom or dad came to our aid and assistance. We ran to them crying, I hurt myself. They gave us the peroxide. They gave us the Vaseline, and they put a Band-Aid on it. And when that Band-Aid was placed on that wound, eventually it was time for that Band-Aid to be taken off, exposed to the air, and heal. That equated to a scab coming. And a scab, sometimes sore, but it's a protector while that wound heals up. Naturally so in our bodies. But psychologically as humans, when the scab, the defense mechanism pops up to protect us, in my case, from any relationships that was associated with women or trust in them, there was no internal work done. It was just a defense mechanism. But when these defense mechanisms or scabs come up, it's meant for us to do the internal work intentionally for healing, because it's going to come a time where that scab has to come off. And the sad part about what I'm sharing with you is that our scabs as humans from a psychological level don't come off naturally. They don't come off naturally through a process. They come off when we yield ourselves. When we get a divine intervention, we yield ourselves to a person or people that can help us process the traumatic experience in another realm. Because if we continue to process the experience in the natural realm from a psychological standpoint, we will never get healed, because we'll relive it and it can re-traumatize us. And the defense mechanism, the wall, has become a part of who we are, because as we collected the data and we studied the data and rehearsed it, we rehearsed it so much, we became one with the wall. We'll do a part 2 in a couple of days. Just take this conversation, and from my story, I want you to personalize. I want you to put your story in it. How did this occur in your life? What traumatic experience did you go through the 5 senses, which internalized? What is your wall? What is your defense mechanism? Is it sarcasm? Is it you shutting down? Is it isolation? Is it avoidance? Is it busyness? Do you work in some insurmountable amount of hours? What form of escapism are you using that has become your wall? We all are confined in different areas of life, but now it's time to be truly honest with ourselves and do the work. You're not going to be able to do the work alone. It is not going to happen. We all need outside perspective to help us through this process. It is difficult to correct the author of the story. It's really impossible. It's impossible. I'll leave you with this thought. It is impossible to correct the author of a story, because the person birthed the story. They wrote out the script themselves. I'm saying that if I choose to try to address my wall individually, I can't be corrected because I authored this story. How you gonna tell me the script that I wrote is wrong? How you gonna tell me that it's off? I can say that to you, and somebody can say that to me if it has me stuck in a redundant pattern of behavior that equates to a dead end. This is Mr. Cage, part 1, becoming one with the wall.